All right, so what I'm going to be talking about today is software product management for video games, and I apologize to those of you who already work in software development because a lot of this is going to be like your work invading your fun for you. So, but I hope we can make it video game specific enough that it's still interesting. And I actually had a lot of fun putting this presentation together, thinking about how to specifically convert these processes into a more video game specific arena. So hopefully we can talk about that and you guys will find it interesting. So a little bit about myself first. So I've spent a really long time as a software product manager. Basically been doing that my whole career since I finished university. And about 3 years ago, I decided that I really wanted to try and build indie games. And that was a lot of fun. And that was how I met Willem doing one of his Unity-based playcrafting courses. And I did that for a while. I got a couple of games to the point where like some publishers had some interest. But ultimately what that led to is just recently becoming a product manager at Blizzard, which I'm really excited about. And, you know, it made me realize that, you know, well, not I made me realize, it validated my theory that the skills that you learn in regular software, you know, can move you, can help and be applicable in the video game space. So this is the basic agenda of what we're going to talk about today. We'll talk about, first of all, how hard making games is, as I'm sure you're all fairly aware of this problem. And then we'll talk about the history of how people used to project manage software and engineering before that, and how that evolved into Agile, which gave birth to Scrum. And then I'm going to take a moment to talk about Crossy Road, which I hope you've all played. And then I'm going to use Crossy Road as an example of how to do Agile project management techniques. And I'm going to do an example of how to do it on Crossy Road, and then you guys are going to do it as an example on your own games. And hopefully by the end, we can sort of have some skeleton of a way to plan and how to get to the actual release in July and have a full product, which I did not do when I took this course myself. So I did not practice what I'm preaching. Yeah. So yeah. So I first wanted to talk about, I just want to tell people about this YouTube channel. It's called Alpha Beta Gamer, and it's really awesome. It's just beta gameplay videos of all these crazy, bizarre indie games. And I like to watch them when I'm drinking coffee or wasting my time. And if you go back like, 3 years, you can all these looking beta games that are very fleshed out. But you'll probably realize that, how come I've only ever heard of like 1 or 2 of these? And that's because making video games is really hard. So I encourage you guys to check out this website and see some really cool games. It's not a website, you know what I mean? Okay, so the history of project management. So first of all, we're going to talk about waterfall and the ways in which massive engineering projects were designed before computers, before all of that stuff. And basically all of the practices of how we initially designed software and games come from, historical engineering, building bridges, building buildings, building any big mechanical project in the world. Originally, how people design software was based on these principles of, you need to know exactly where you're going to place every brick and every stone and every cable, and you know how much it's going to cost, you need to how long it's going to take, and you plan that whole thing out from start to finish at the start, because, well, if you're building a bridge, you need to be sure that you're going to build the whole bridge, I guess. But that doesn't really work well in software for a lot of reasons, as basically was discovered in the 90s and 80s as people started to use these practices for software. Basically, in software, you're never really building something that has exactly been built before, because if you were, you'd just copy the code and you'd have it. So in software, generally, you're solving that. Generally, when you're making a piece of software and when you're making a game, you're solving for an unknown problem. And that means that you can't really design the whole thing at once, because you don't know when you're at point B if you're still going to be going to point C. And the other thing is that you can't really prototype when you're building bridges or rockets or skyscrapers, but you can prototype very easily when you're building software because it's not real, it doesn't exist. And so that leads us to Agile, which again, I apologize if you work in software, you've heard all this before, but Agile is basically the practice that's evolved to be the standard of how all software is developed in games, in non-games, in every type of corporate software development in 2021 is Agile. And there are very different variations, but almost every different type of software that you can build uses this process. And so then Agile is kind of like a bit of a cult, a bit religion-y, a bit, it's a philosophy. And so we start then with the tenets of Agile. And these are the tenets. And, you know, this isn't maybe not super relevant to a small group, but the key tenet here that is super relevant to what you guys are doing is responding to change over following a plan. And that is super, super important in game development, as I'm sure you've all experienced, that all good games go through massive changes in a development cycle as they find, you know, the fun, as they find what works for them. Maybe not all, I don't know, but a lot do. And you need, that is a key tenet of Agile, is being able to respond to unknown inputs as you're passing through development and reshaping the project based on that. Any questions at this point?
Jeremy, what is Agile?
So Agile is that's a good question. I can't believe I didn't say that. So Agile is like basically a philosophy of how to build software. All it really consists of are these 4 tenets and these 12 principles. So you can't really do very much with just that. It's basically just a religion, a philosophy at this stage. It's not going to actually help you build anything. It's just giving you ways to think about how to build software to hopefully help you not make the mistakes that people made before they invented this stuff. And I've highlighted what I think are the important ones here. Satisfying customers through early and continuous delivery of valuable work, which would be play testing in the case of games. Breaking big work down into smaller tasks that can be completed quickly. Welcoming changing requirements, even late in a project. Assembling the project team and business owners on a daily basis throughout the project. Considered cutting out daily there because this is like a side hustle for you guys. So I don't know, maybe you don't have the bandwidth to talk daily, but in professional software development, that's very important. And harnessing change for competitive advantage. So Hamna, all Agile is those 4 tenets and these 12 principles. But what's important, when everyone actually talks about Agile, what they're really talking about is Scrum. And that's a Scrum in my home country from my people in Australia. But what Scrum is in software is basically a set of practices of how to go from you have nothing, you have an idea, to you deliver something out the other end. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go through these steps for each of the games that you guys are working on. And so I gave a kind of vague answer with Agile, but with Scrum, we're going to be a lot more specific. And there's what is Scrum? Scrum is a lot of things. And we're just going to focus on the parts that I think are most useful for what you guys are doing right now. But Scrum is like a whole big thing that people can go to long courses to learn about so they can project manage in the software industry. So there's a lot of content to it. But you know, you don't need to know all of it. A lot of it is kind of not kind of peripheral, I would say. So we're just going to focus on the big key steps to get you guys through like a 3-month thing. And so these are the 7 steps basically. You start with setting up your project vision and scope with a planning meeting, building out your product roadmap, creating a release plan. We're going to kind of merge step 2 and 3 because you guys are fairly constrained with your release options. Sprint planning, which we'll talk about. And then the final bits, so the first 3 are sort of like the planning component, and then the first 4 are the planning component, and the last 3 are I guess you could call it like the feedback mechanism to make sure things are happening the way you expect them to. So we're just going to focus on the planning component, and we're going to go a bit quicker over the check-in component. Any questions at this point? All right. So has everyone played Crossy Road? It's really good. I like it a lot. I can't believe no one's played it.
I've played it.
Okay. Do you like it?
Yeah, it's really fun.
It's good. It's a good
They
game.
even have them in like Dave and Buster's is like a mini game too.
Yeah, this is an iOS game that was so successful that it now is a proper arcade game. Not many games in the world can say that. Yeah, so Crossy Road was made by 2 Australian guys, and it's made an incomprehensible amount of money. They made it in I think 3 months, basically, the first version. So it's really, really similar in scope to what you guys are kind of work on here. All of the content that I've got about their specific goals is from a GDC YouTube talk called Crossy Road, A Whale of a Time. And if you find what I'm saying interesting, I really encourage you guys to go listen to that because it's a very, very good talk by people who know a lot more about making video games than I do. So, yeah. So I'm gonna go through and break down those exercises for the planning components using Crossy Road, and then you guys are gonna do it for your own game.
Jeremy, do you have that link handy? If not, we can do it after.
Yeah, I can send it out. I'll send it out after the course.
Okay, perfect.
I don't have it right now.
That's great.
So the first step is, and I think maybe you guys have already done something similar to this, but it's going to be important for the later steps as well. So the first step is to define a project vision and scope. And this is really important because as we define the lower level design elements, we need to know why we're saying the things that we're going to say. And I think that a lot of games, more games are doing this sort of thing these days. For example, the From Software, they always make sure that they have design goals tied into their individual levels and individual enemies and components like that. And I think that creates a much more thematically tied together game. And in Crossy Road, they did the same thing, but not for artistic reasons, for monetary reasons. And you can see it in their goals too. So what the vision and scope is going to be done is, this is in sort of the elevator pitch format. There's a lot of different formats you can do this in. So it's sort of like a couple of sentences to define the goal of the game, who it's for, what they need, what the product is, comparing it to something else and saying what its value proposition is, what it's unlike, and then a summary, and then the values at the end. So that was a bit wishy-washy, but here's how it would break down for Crossy Road. So one of the key design goals they had for Crossy Road was that it was going to be the next Flappy Bird. And if something's going to be the next Flappy Bird, it's for everyone. And I'm kind of reluctant that I picked a game to do this where the target market is everyone. But I think it's clear when you look at Crossy Road that the target market clearly is everyone. It's not like a cop-out. They really wanted to make a game for everyone. And you can see that in all of the design decisions.
It really is normally a cop-out. It's unusual.
Yeah, I think this is one of the very rare cases where it's not a cop-out. So I think that's good. And the who is basically they want another Flappy Bird. So it's someone who wants to play a game, a high score game, where you can share it with people, you can tap, 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 they want another Flappy Bird. They play Flappy Bird, they want something like that. And then the game, what is the section is describing the game. So Crossy Road is a single button mobile high score game. And it actually evolved out of being a single button high score game. But when they originally designed it, they were thinking it was a single button high score game. So that goes to show about the change component as well. And that is kind of what are the focuses? So they had 3 key focuses that they wanted: retention, virality, and re-engagement. And you can really see that as they designed out the game, they focused on those 3 things above all else. And what was it unlike? So there's a lot of very, micro games that are very focused on monetization. They wanted to be unlike the games where monetization was the key focus. And, I'm sure you've all played iOS games where you get hit with the cash store really fast, or there's some sort of thing to push you down the monetization track really fast. Crossy Road doesn't do that. And that was a key thing they wanted to differentiate themselves from the competitors. And the product is just Frogger meets Flappy Bird. That's the one sentence. That's the quickest description you can come up with of the game. So I thought we could then take 15 minutes for everyone to do this in groups for their own games. Does that make sense to everyone? Does that sound like a useful thing to do?
Hey man, you're the instructor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, does anyone have questions? Does everyone understand?
Mhm. Okay.
Okay.
So I
Sounds
have the breakout rooms ready for everyone, so I'll open those up in a second. And just for everyone to know, of course, these Monday classes are always pretty quick. We're always trying to pack it as much as we can to an hour and a half. So part of what we're going to be doing Wednesday is returning to some of this and rediscussing it, giving you enough time to get to it. So do your best to get through these so that we have something to talk about, but don't worry too much if you feel like you don't have an answer to some of these questions. All right, should I stick them in?
Yeah.
All right, 15 minutes. The rooms are open. And Jeremy, what do you want to do during this time?
I guess I can just go. Do you want me to start the timer or do you want a time?
I can time.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, do you want me to just switch you through?
Yeah, do I do that or
Switch
do
in
you do that?
houses? Unfortunately, I have to. It's a pain. Unless you're the main host of the class, I'm the one who has to do it.
Okay.
So let me, why don't you just shoot me a message on Discord when you want to switch rooms?
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna stick you in room 1. Do we have it? Cool. Okay, I'm gonna hang out for a bit and let Jeremy do the talking. This is his class after all. I'm gonna answer this email. Okay. Mm. It's not the most exciting recording for a class. I'm going to go ahead, just so it's not confusing to anyone watching after the fact, I'm going to turn off my video if I am not actively doing something in one of the classes. They are currently in the room with Jeremy. You can come back. In this case, you can skip forward probably 7, 8, 9 minutes. Ba, 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 ba. We're back. I have crap on my shirt. Fez. My cat is in the box. Kevin. Hold on, the other Kevin isn't here, so I can't hear you.
How's it
What's
going,
up,
Rob?
Rob? How you doing, man?
All right, we're having a blast.
Hello.
Good. Hello, everyone. Thomas, do you get a haircut?
I did get a haircut, yes.
It looks nice. A plus. Oh,
Here.
there we go. Welcome back, everybody. We have a Jeremy again.
He ran away.
Hi.
Hi. Go ahead, man.
All right. So Willem, I don't think we have time to it's not the right page. I don't think we have time to go through all everyone's answers. Do you? I don't think so.
It's up to, are people willing to stay 10 minutes past to make up the time?
Yeah.
Tell me if you cannot, or if you would rather not.
I can say
I would rather not because I have to eat like right after this.
Okay, so why don't we, Jeremy, why don't we do the exercises, and then we will, with whatever time we got left, we can talk about stuff and go through it.
All right.
Make sense?
Sounds good.
Okay, man.
All right. All right. So that's step one. So now you guys have something to refer back to as you're planning. And the real, I think the most important part of the stuff we just talked about are like, where's the Crossy Road one? So for Crossy Road, I mean, you can sort of pick what the most important one, but for Crossy Road, the important thing is that it's focusing on retention, virality, and re-engagement. And we get that from that we're trying to be another Flappy Bird. So that was their key value that they're trying to, and their key differentiator of trying to differentiate themselves and make them valuable. So when I'm breaking down the plan for Crossy Road as I go on, I'm going to be referring back to retention and virality and re-engagement. And this is me putting this agile structure over their plans, which they didn't use, but they did constantly refer back to this original design. And if you look at the video I talked about, you'll see that. So the next step is building out the product roadmap. And this is basically the core of steps that you need to get to from having nothing to having something at the end. And what that means is this for Crossy Road. So you have a series of goals and you have the dates for them. And these are the real dates that the Crossy Road team planned. They did not hit them, but they planned them. And what would be at the very high level, what is the goal for each step? And the first one, they gave themselves 3 weeks and they called it Roadkill Simulator 2000. This is basically their alpha. And basically what they're trying to prove out at this point is the gameplay. So what is the goal? A highly playable Frogger high score game. That's it. No art, nothing. And so what are the things that you need to build to do this? And I'll break it down in a more detail later. But basically you need the player, and the player needs to be able to be controlled. You need, and we calling them biomes because of Minecraft, but they're not really biomes, but you need the different biomes for the different hazards. There's the road obstacles and there's the river obstacles. And you need a world that switches between the road and the river obstacles periodically as the player moves on and generates more. And then the metric at this point would be some sort of engagement metric for, you have to build this prototype and show it to people, and you want some sort of engagement. You want to prove out the concept by seeing levels of engagement that validate your theory at this point. Goal B would be basically incorporating more of the complex features and the art. So basically it's the prototype with art. So there's no complex difficulty scaling in the first version. So they had to add the difficulty scaling, and in the second version, they had to add in all the various art, and they had to add in coins to get, a bit more gameplay. And then finally, there's the build that has all of the extraneous stuff that actually makes money. the character unlock, the ability to buy characters, and at least 5 characters. They actually did 50, but I just put 5. Any questions about that? All right, so this is their first prototype. Basically blocks in a space, no menus, just basically you die, you immediately get spawned back to the start. No art, all of the threats are just boxes, those are the cars, the red boxes there. The lily pad is kind of pretty close to the actual lily pad. And I have no idea what that player character is supposed to be down there. So that was their prototype, and that was sort of the level that they planned their prototype to. So your product roadmap is your alpha, which is on May 26th, your beta, which is on June 21st, and your release, which is on July 7th. And, a key point of Agile is you don't actually need to plan out the beta and the release now. You can, but under the understanding that they may change a lot based on whatever you learn in the alpha. So you can sort of choose, you should have some planning of the beta and the release because, you need that because these dates aren't going to shift, but these can be very high level, and the alpha is where you want to focus most of your planning on. So that's what we're going to do now for another 15 minutes is plan out the alpha, and and I realized, once I stopped sharing, you couldn't see any of this, so we'll post it in the chat. What you're coming up with is the name for the alpha, the goal for the alpha, the goal being, what is this completed thing? And what does it do? The features, the individual components you'll have to construct, both in art, programming, gameplay, whatever, to get there at a very high level. And the metric, what is the thing you're going to assess whether this was successful by?
Awesome. Any questions before I drop you guys into the rooms? I think one thing to point out, if you would like really quick, dude, go back to that picture of the Crossy Road alpha. An alpha, guys, is basically just a committed prototype. You notice how ugly this is. The whole point of this is to flesh out and test that gameplay. They're not bothering with art yet. Your team can if you have the resources to do so, but it's way less important. The more important thing is to be able to vet and try out your gameplay as quickly as possible, just to point out how they did it there and the way that is typically done in the industry. Okay.
Alpha is feature complete, but that's it.
Yeah. Yep.
And
you can play,
feature,
but
not
that's
wish
it.
list.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so the rooms are open, and I'm going to drop the exercise into the Discord if anyone needs it. Go ahead and switch in. And Jeremy, would you switch back so that I can get a screenshot of that, or would you send me a screenshot?
Sure.
Sweet. Okay. And you're currently in with House Cleric. Do you want to jump back in with them?
Sure.
Okay, cool. Go ahead. And then just let me know again, same thing. There we go. You should be able to join now.
Oh, I think I clicked no when it came up before and it hasn't come up again.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, wait, maybe I can.
Yeah, if you hit the breakout rooms button on the bottom, I think you.
Oh, I can join. So I was in 4 before, is that right?
Yeah, so you'd be back in the same room, or I can put you in a different one if you want.
No, I'll just go back to that one.
Okay. Mayara, are you there?
Yes, I'm just
Hi.
listening.
Okay.
As always, I'm like really tired because it's the end of the day, but I just came to watch it a little bit.
Okay, perfect.
How are you doing?
Well, I can stick you in with House Cleric if you'd like. I'm good. How are you doing? I'm tired. Oh, I'm frustrated. I was late to class today. It's the first time I've ever been late to class, and I'm disappointed.
Was it like 5 minutes? I saw the message.
Yeah, it was like it was like 7 minutes.
I think you shouldn't be that hard on yourself.
It just sucks. It's fine. It's fine. I did a guys weekend with all of my partner's family, who I've become very close to, which is wonderful. But it was a long weekend, and I fell asleep in the car on the way home. And well, here we are.
Oh, but that's a cool story. That's what matters. So they're doing the exercises now for how long?
Yeah, 15 minutes.
Oh, okay, cool, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm hoping we'll talk tomorrow. Thank you for letting me reschedule.
Yeah, it actually worked out well. It was convenient for me as well. It gave me the chance to
sleep after the hangover. I can't see anything because it's not a person.
Didn't work.
There. Wow.
It's our board game. It's the prototype laser cut copy of Tailmore.
That's so cool.
Yeah. The frustrating part is that this was the very first scan and play dungeon crawler, and literally yesterday a larger publisher announced something very similar to this. Yeah, there's never been something like this, and 2 months before a Kickstarter opens. So I'm hoping it just helps. You know, the genre is more proven. If you like one game, you're gonna like other ones similar to it.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I still can't believe that. It's ridiculous.
You know, that happened to some friend of ours here because they had been working on this game. They released, I think, like just a couple of weeks ago. But the game, it kind of looks like Hades, you know. But it's not that they copied it, because they had been developing it way before Hades started, because they're an indie studio, so it took them longer.
Yeah.
But it was just something that didn't quite work well for them, because it was just like, you know, now you have Hades, which is like an award-winning bloody perfect game.
Yeah.
And then you release something that looks like it, but it's an indie game.
Yeah.
And then people were just like, oh well, you just copied Hades and it's not that good now, is it? And you just, no, it's just timing issues.
So frustrating. Yeah. So we're hopeful it'll be fine. I mean, it's certainly a very different game, and I mean, I have no idea. I haven't played their game yet. It's not actually out. But I feel.
But do you have a publisher yet for this?
We're self-publishing this. We're Kickstarter in July.
Oh, cool.
Do you mean somebody to print it?
No, like if I don't know exactly how it goes for board games, but like here, usually there's this one publisher in the country that I think is the only one. And then everyone contacts them, and they're the ones that they print it, they like finalize it, they do marketing and stuff. But you're doing Kickstarter, you said, right?
Yes, we are doing Kickstarter.
Yeah, no, I think it will help though. Because like if they just release something, then people will be hyped. And once they see the Kickstarter, they'll be like, oh, that's cool. We want another one.
I'm kind of hopeful that we can like make some jokes about it. You know, like we were the first scan and play dungeon crawler, but we'll see. We'll decide how to handle
by a
it.
day. Like we were the first.
It really is. I mean, I don't know. It's funny because like in the startup world, this is actually typically a good thing. Because it builds validity in the idea. You know, an investor will be hesitant to do something that no one has done before, but if they see almost nobody has done it before, but that one person did pretty well, then they're much more likely to want in on it. But this is a board game, so I don't know.
No, just be hopeful. Don't go for the negative stuff. Like it's a cool thing. You have the project. Just go for it. Like.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't think it helps there's nothing we can do about it at this point, really. So
yeah,
we'll
always focus on the stuff that you can actually control. Otherwise you go crazy with all the stuff that you can't.
Yeah, and that game is probably terrible, right?
Yeah.
This is maybe my favorite piece.
Oh, that looks so nice. So do you like you play with the QR code? Is it like AR?
A bit, not technically, but a bit. So, can you see things? Oh, we can't because of my freaking
a ghost.
The auto background.
I'm like, yeah, nice logo for the indie. Academy.
9 minutes left. All right. Let me turn that off. There we go. Look, I was taking videos of
there
it
you
just
go.
earlier.
Whoa, that looks
So-
so cool.
This is we have a couple of rooms that actually snap together and become larger rooms. So that is the throne room. And then these are smaller rooms, and you can see there are passageways and doorways in between.
Yes.
And then this is a party indicator. So the way it works is an app acts as your dungeon master and actually says like, hey, we are going to, you start in room A1. Go ahead and put that on the table. In room A1, you see
I see.
glittering jewel on the ground, and you see a fucking dragon.
Yeah.
It's
It's kind of like Mansions of Madness does it a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of the ones that people compare it to often. So it's all of the interaction happens on your phone, but the thing that you're doing 99% of the time is scan this, and the app knows like you want to go interact with the dragon. This is what happens.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
it's, I would say the actual gameplay is most similar to a choose your own adventure, those old school novels.
Okay.
Where it's like, okay, you enter the throne room. What do you do? Flip to page 20 if you do that.
That's cool. Because I was about to ask if you were like copying the gameplay from Mansions of Madness, because I get so frustrated with that game. I don't really like it.
Oh no. No, we're definitely not.
We bought it. We actually got it as a gift, and the box is huge, right? And then my father-in-law, he brought it to us from the US. And we were like so excited. We're gonna play it, and I just got frustrated every time I played it because it's so unforgiving. I'm just I'm just gonna die, aren't I? Like, why am I playing? Am I just going for my doom? What's the point?
You'll pretty much always win this one. We also do have some minor combat. Where did I put that? The card art is absolutely not finalized, but it still looks cool.
Yeah. Okay, I can see it now. Yeah.
So it's kind of
cool.
It's kind of similar. Have you played Slay the Spire?
Yeah.
It almost has.
A lot.
Yes, I love that game. It almost has a mini Slay the Spire inside of it, where every party member is building their own little deck. But it's very.
But that's really cool that you decide to bring this narrative, talking, interacting to a board game, because that's the thing that board games don't really do, right?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
they're board games.
Yeah, and we can. One of the things that's really cool about it is that content packs are huge. We can just release new scenarios with you not having to do anything. Your board game becomes bigger. There's new stuff you can do with your pieces. So we're excited
That's
about
so
it.
cool.
Yeah, it is definitely a little ridiculous that someone beat us to the punch, but we just got this box today. It looks fucking great. The pieces
It
all
looks
stick
really
together.
nice. Like from
They
what I
seem to all
could
be
see in the
playable.
camera, it looks really nice. Like
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I love some of the art. So we had two main artists, one person who was doing the items and the rooms. Her name is, man, it really doesn't like.
Well, it's all white. There. Oh, I can see it. Yeah. No, I can't see it.
Maybe. What if I do that?
There. Yeah. There.
There we go. So she did the art.
Okay.
There's like a little armory.
That's really cool.
It was really fun, picking the rooms and sort of giving her the design prompt to like any story could take place in this room. So, we want there to be like fun little extra elements where you might just notice, a rat hole or something in the corner, and that could be what the whole story winds up being about.
And it's very easy to grow without necessarily needing to print any new stuff or too many new pieces, and you can just have like more stories happen in all of these rooms that you can just rearrange them in a different way, and that's it. Or even fairly similar but with a very different story.
Yeah, very expansion friendly too, I think.
That's cool.
Yeah,
congrats on the project.
Thank you. Do you want to go hang out with the clerics? There's 5 minutes left to this exercise.
Oh, if you want to send me there, sure, yeah.
All right, I'll send you in. And then for the next one, I'll just stick you in there.
Okay.
For the next exercise. There's 3 exercises today.
I'll just be watching though, but sure.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay. So we have a little under 5 minutes left now. for this exercise. And once again, I'm just hanging out. I'm switching him between rooms, if you're wondering what I'm doing as we go. So Jeremy is mostly dealing with people's questions, etc. Since this is his class. So if you are watching, you may have just seen my conversation between me and Mayara about this game that did exactly what we were doing as a little indie studio, only they released 2 months before Kickstarter. I'm frustrated. I'm looking at their stuff right now to see how we will proceed, how we're going to talk about it moving forward. Looks like the rooms are about to close. So I'm going to go ahead and close them, bring the students back. They're going to have 60 seconds to come back, and then we'll let Jeremy continue to talk. Hello.
Greetings.
Hello.
Greetings. What's up, guys?
What's up?
I love that y'all do the House Warrior background.
Uh,
That true camaraderie.
Yeah.
All right, everybody's back. Jeremy, you want to take over again?
Yeah, let's do it. All right. So it seemed like everyone was going pretty good on that one. Great job to everyone that I listened to. It sounds like you all got some goals and stuff. Okay, so now we get to the part where I spend almost all of my time at work doing the actual sprint planning. So, and as a side note to this, you guys might decide the stuff that I'm saying here isn't necessary for you. I think all of the other stuff is necessary for everyone, but most of this stuff is built in a world where one person or a small group of people are doing the designing, and it's being carried out by a larger group of people. So you might decide that this creation of stories is unnecessary for you because the design work is spread across the whole group. So this part is unnecessary. It might be helpful, but it really depends on the dynamic between the team, whether you guys think this stuff is useful or not. But I'm still going to talk about it anyway. So basically what we're doing now is we have this goal. 3 weeks from now, we want to build this Roadkill Simulator 2000. And we're kind of cheating because we already know what it looks like. I showed you the picture. So it makes it a lot easier to plan it out in that case. So basically we take these features and they become what's called epics, and we break them down into stories. And one way we can communicate these to each other is Trello, which I'll show you later if we have time at the end. But basically a user story, and again, apologies to those of you who work in software, a user story is basically a description of a series of events that happens in the game that affect the user and allow them to interact with it in the way that they want. And in software, this is as a user. In games, this is as a player. Well, it doesn't have to be as a player, but almost all of the ones you write will be as a player. So as a player, I want to be able to dodge the cars. So I need to be able to trigger a move forward when I tap the thing. That would be a simple user story for the ability to move. And we also are going to tie the themes to it, as you'll see on the next page. So again, just refreshing your mind, remembering about what we're building towards. So this is how this sort of works. So I've broken out, and if you think I've missed anything, please jump in, because that's like the key purpose of this episode. This activity is to try and fully understand the amount of work we have to do to complete the task. So this was my attempt at it for this prototype of Crossy Road. So we've got the epics are the game space, the player character, the road biome, and the water biome. There's also the forest biome, but I left that out. Does that sort of coming up with the main components of the game make sense to everyone? Or does anyone have any questions about it, I should say? Cool. So we'll start with I guess the player. So the player needs to be able to move. The player needs to be able to collide with something that doesn't kill it but blocks its forward movement. The player needs to be able to collide with something that kills it. And the player needs to be able to there needs to be a model as well. The road needs a fast car and a slow car. The water biome needs a lily pad and a log. The lily pad is the little green thing, and the log is a thing that passes through the water biome. And if the player can jump on it and then jump to the next one. And the game space, we need to first generate the starting area. And then when the player advances to a certain point, we need the behavior of auto scrolling, which generates another row, moves the camera forward, and kills some amount of rows somewhere in the past to prevent too much memory being used. And I think that's basically everything that they had in their first prototype. Any questions? So now we go to user stories. And user stories are basically how we in Blizzard and other places communicate individual requirements of things that need to be built. So I'm doing this for the lily pad here. So as a player, I want to be able to proceed through water biomes by using a combination of lily pads and logs so they can proceed to the next row. Each row of a water biome should either be a lily pad row or a log row. For the lily pad row, when the row is generated, a lily pad should be spawned in the path of the player. The lily pad should be destroyed a set period after the player moves onto it. If the player is on the lily pad when it is destroyed, the player is destroyed and the run is over. And now maybe the most important, so that's just to sort of like explain to someone what this thing does. If someone else is designing it and someone else is building it, that's to explain it. But one part I really want to draw your attention to is the acceptance criteria. And that's what is this value that we're trying to generate here? And how basically the acceptance criteria is how do we know that this is good? And what I came up with for this is, there's not really anything about virality and retention here. Although one of the things that they did talk about in that talk I was mentioning is they wanted to make sure every failed state was very humorous to try and have a viral moment when people die in a humorous way. but they didn't actually do that for the lily pad. It was more for like cars and stuff. The lily pad death really isn't very humorous. So for retention, we want the game to feel fair. So there needs to be like some visual warning when the lily pad is about to be destroyed. And again, we want the game to feel fair. So it should be fairly consistent how long lily pads are present for. And you'll notice, like I said, consistent. I'm not giving set times because we want to try and avoid that. But this leaves the door open for there to be like multiple lily pads that look different. Maybe there's a big one and a small one, and they both are consistent, but they both have different amounts of time before they degenerate. But basically, I'm trying to, as best I can, say, why is this lily pad going to be a cool part of the game? Any questions?
So the story is that bold sentence at the top.
No, sorry. Yes, that's not very welcoming. So the epic is water biome, and these are 2 user stories. The lily pad and the log are 2 user stories. And the story is the sentence at the top. Yes, as a player, da da da. So this is the lily pad user story, and that first line is the story, and the rest is the sort of the implementation instructions. And yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, so that it's a story in the sense that we're describing the process, and it has a start and an end, and then the rest of it is how to make that meaningful and valuable.
And an epic is a related collection of stories.
Yes, an epic is a collection of stories that give us a whole piece of a component of the game. So yeah, with some collection of epics broken down into hopefully 4 or 5 max stories, you can describe the functionality of your first prototype. Might be more than that, but
Hey, Jeremy,
Yeah,
in the commercial world, do you have like different teams working on different parts, different epics, or?
No, most teams. So you would generally have multiple epics per team, right? So
Okay.
So like a team would be, I mean, if for something as small as Crossy Road, but an epic in like, an MMO would be like, well, so in an MMO, you have a level above this called themes. And like a theme might be like the Real Money Auction House or something like that. And that would have a big set of epics underneath it. And then under that, another set of stories. But the teams would be assigned to a theme, which would have, in the case of like, a AAA game, a theme would have hundreds of epics, and then each epic would have dozens of stories under it.
And are you going to tie sprints to the stories, or?
Yeah. So the sort of the sprint planning is basically, we'll do that after we do this last exercise. The next exercise is, I want everyone to try and generate a user story, the epics and the names of the stories, and one user story for their prototype. This is a lot. This is probably the hardest one. So if you don't finish the whole thing in the time, that's fine, because these things take hours to write in the real world. So we're giving you way less time than you actually need to do
it. Should we stick them in now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to put you guys in your rooms. I'll bring you back right at 8 o'clock, and we'll say goodbye and tell you what's happening on Wednesday. But you have the next 10 minutes to try to write your first user story for this, for the alpha release of your games. Rooms are open. I forgot to turn myself off here again. But class is almost over anyway. There you go. My cat wants food. It's dinner time for him right after this call. All right, I'm going to close all the rooms. Hello.
Boom.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, so I will leave this open for a little bit for anyone who has questions for Jeremy. And Jeremy, I'll let you close down in a second. But for anyone, I know that David might need to head out. So for anyone who needs to head out on Wednesday, we'll be returning to some of this. We will be finishing up a sprint plan for you guys. We will also be talking about the GDD and a little bit more. And then next week, we have Dave Bennett from Shell Games coming in to talk about the gameplay pillars. So next week, we're really getting down and dirty with how to make an awesome video game. So Jeremy, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I do. A lot of people ask me about how this actually, well, this is all well and good, but how does this actually let us plan anything? And I want to just show that quickly because I kind of cut that out because that goes into the second piece. So this is how this actually goes to real planning. So Hipster Whale has 2 team members and they've done this planning piece. So they have 1 sprint and 2 sprint and the backlog. So we've just created all of those stories and we believe this is the full set of stories to complete the prototype. So basically the next step, sprint planning, is then, assigning these units of work to hipster whale person 1 and hipster whale person 2. And so say one of them is, and then you just, based on the skill set and the amount of time people have, you assign it. And there's a method of planning where you assess capacity, but we don't really have time to talk about that. If people are interested in it, you can message me outside and I can tell you about it. But basically, you would figure out how many of these stories can be fit into sprint 1. And considering you only have 1 sprint, I think they can probably all be fit into sprint 1. And that's how you take that. You take the user stories and plan a completed sprint. And a sprint is usually 2 weeks. In your case, it's less to complete the sort of cycle of this planning component.
Awesome.
Oh wait, am I not sharing my screen?
Oh, you are.
You are.
You are.
We'll also, we'll be sure to dive into this a little bit more on Wednesday then. And we can actually, I mean, like I said, the plan was to do more of this with you guys and give you more time to work on this. So we can also talk a little bit more about it. I'll pull up Jeremy's deck here and we'll actually do the exercise together to do a full sprint planning. Anybody have questions? I can hang out for another 7 minutes.
Jeremy, I got a question.
Sure.
Since starting at Blizzard, because I know you're pretty new to it, what are some like
increased quantifying of progress and increased effort to do these sort of things of assessing the scope of a team and assessing how much they can get done. So it seems like there's a lot of change going on at the moment. But one of the biggest differences for games that I've seen that isn't how enterprise software works is so the production cycle on games on enterprise software is pretty flexible in that, like, whatever you need to get done, it's usually just the engineers are the main bottleneck. But there's so many other bottlenecks in games that the planning becomes a lot more complicated. Like, voice actors, 3D models take like infinitely longer to build than any other sort of asset you might need. Like the different threads are operating on a much slower time scale than just how enterprise software is.
Any other questions?
I do. I have one. So when do you do your sprint reviews? Do you do them simultaneously while designing your next sprint, or do you do them while you're doing the sprint and you realize it's not working or working well?
So usually you do the sprint review on the last day of the sprint and you say, did this work? Did this not work? What should we change? Basically, the format of a sprint review is usually everyone sits around in a circle or on the internet, as the case may be, and someone says something that they think worked well, something that they think didn't work well, and something that they think should change. And, like that could be something like, oh, we thought that, building these art assets would be really quick, but it's actually taking infinite time. Like, we need to factor that into next sprint. Or it could be something like, well, we didn't think the monetization well enough before we did it. Or it could just be like, everything's working great, keep going, that sort of thing.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think for you guys, it would be like the day before you submit your prototype. If you want to be agile and be as scrummy as possible, you would do it just before you submit the prototype.
Jeremy, when you were developing as an indie developer, were you pretty much also using this process?
Yeah, so that's sort of, I 100% use this, everything up to, well, I screwed up my slide to try and make a point, but everything up to the breaking down of stories I did for myself, because it's really hard to like, you actually need to project manage yourself more than you need to project other people, I find, because if I don't project manage myself, I'm a very bad employee. So I think it's for if you're doing solo stuff, it's really important to do this sort of thing. Maybe for me personally, maybe more disciplined people don't need to do it, but I 100% do this for myself.
Jeremy, this almost feels like to me like UI design. Like literally everything or every function that the user goes through has to be logged down and kind of planned and then made.
Yeah, that's a good observation. Like a lot of the way that I've done this is derived, or what are they called? There's this Bay Area UX team that sort of implements a lot of, it's called design thinking.
Yeah.
Can't remember that's very influential in a lot of this stuff. So a lot of this stuff is derived from like UX thinking and stuff like that. So yes, that's true.
That makes sense. Well, more sense.
Awesome. So I'm going to close this down so that I can get the recording up and out. And for anyone who is running over time here, if anyone has questions, Jeremy is in our channel, so feel free to shoot him messages there. And I will also be trying to answer any of these questions that we are unclear about on Wednesday. Sound good?
Yeah, definitely feel free to hit me up with any sort of questions you guys have. I'm in the chat. I'm on one of the guys from last course has a Friday games thing, and he would kill me if I didn't plug it to you guys as well. So come play games with us on Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a blast. It really is fun, and you get your house points. So like, do it. All right. Well, let's do a celebration for Jeremy. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming. What a fantastic class.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah. Okay, everyone. I will see you on Wednesday. And oh, Jeremy, is there anything you recommend they do between now and Wednesday? Homework.
Well, I guess you guys are going to do this, go through this exercise more on Wednesday. So I don't really have any homework. You should really watch, if you're interested, watch that GDC talk on Crossy Road. It's really good. I'll send it in the chat. Also go to the YouTube Alpha Beta Gamer and look at the graveyard of really sick game ideas. Both are
and
fun.
maybe steal some. Not actually,
yeah, steal some games that didn't make it.
and make them better. All right, guys. I wish you all well. Thank you all for coming. We will see you on Wednesday.
Bye.
Engage with contact necromancy.
Bye.